This is the podcast of ENCACT, the European Network on Cultural Management and Policy. In this series, we interview extraordinary professionals from the cultural management and policy community. Join us to hear their stories, the secrets of their success, and their advice for creating innovation by inspiring new policies and practices in the cultural, education, and research sector.
I am Pravali Vangeti, and today I'd like to invite you to listen to the special podcast series produced in the framework of the ENCATC Congress 2024, Culture That Matters, Interdisciplinary Approaches for Sustainable Futures, which was held from 18th to 20th of September in Lecce, Italy. At this occasion, our global community of researchers, academics, cultural practitioners, policymakers, artists, and emerging professionals converged together to explore interdisciplinary approaches for sustainability, a theme that is not just relevant but profoundly transformative for the cultural and creative sectors. So without further ado, let us dive into these conversations right away. In this episode, we discover the global conversations, the concluding session of the Congress, which brought together an international panel to explore the transformative power of digital platforms in bridging cultural gaps and fostering global artistic collaboration. The panel includes Daniel Green, President of the Association of Arts Administration Educators, Gaia Denise, the International Cultural Relations and Public Diplomacy Coordinator at the European External Action Service, Professor Wu Sheixiang, the President of the Taiwan Association of Cultural Policy Studies, TAPS, and Liliana Turoiu, Director of the Master's Program in Business Administration of the Creative and Cultural Industries at the ASE University, Romania. This session was moderated by Alan Salstein, Professor of Performing Arts Management and Arts Leadership from DePaul University. Among others, the session also examines the digital aspect of sustainability in cultural exchange with examples of successful partnerships between artists, academia, and cultural institutions. Let us now listen to this very, very international discourse.
Welcome to the Global Conversations, this session at the ENCATC Congress. I am Alan Salzenstein, Professor and Program Director of Performing Arts Management and Arts Leadership at DePaul University in Chicago. And besides being a very proud ENCATC member, I've had the privilege of serving in an advisory role to the Board of Directors for a number of years. And additionally, I previously served as President of the Association of Arts Administration Educators, ENCATC's sister organization, North American-based, and these global conversations are but one joint initiative as part of an ongoing partnership between the two organizations. So I'll be moderating the festivities today, and first of all, I want to congratulate all of you here today because this is the final session prior to the closing events of the Congress. So you are the true committed and dedicated individuals, or perhaps you've already walked as much as you can in the old historic center and you just needed to relax a bit, or you found new shoes and you're trying to break them in. For whatever reasons, thank you for being here. Before we hear from our highly regarded panel, I'd like to provide a very brief background of the global conversations. And just out of curiosity, how many of you are here today and this is your first ENCATC Congress? Oh, quite a few. Wow. Well, to the few of you who didn't raise your hand, you can tune out now for a little while because you've heard this before. But for the rest of you, this will be something that you're going to want to sit on the edge of your seats for. ENCAT, along with AAAE, the Association of Arts Administration Educators, have a long history, over 20 years, of presenting international sessions at each association's annual gatherings. And this was more formally established as the Global Conversations in 2017 during the AAAE conference in Edinburgh, Scotland. And at that meeting, representatives of over 20 countries and 15 various networks joined together for a half-day workshop with these two goals. One, to establish an ongoing conversation among thought leaders and leading networks in cultural and arts management, education, and related fields. And two, to identify common interests and the themes across countries. From our initial gatherings to now, the greater global conditions and circumstances have affected the evolution of these global conversations, and their value and resonance remain strong and possibly stronger than ever. Originally, as a platform for inter and cross-cultural networking, comparisons, and focus on things such as mobility and building collaborations, now we have many collective global experiences that we share, and perhaps too many, shifting the significance of the global conversations from identifying cultural differences to now how we share our combined understandings from our many connections and how we address, cope, resolve, reconcile with similarity or dissimilarity. Our first gathering of global conversations led by ENCAT, AAAE, and TAPS, the Taiwan Association of Cultural Policy Studies, at the time represented by Jerry Liu, benefited from participation, like I said, of over 15 other networks from around the globe. And these conversations have continued through the conferences of ENCAT and AAAE from Edinburgh to Houston, Texas, Bucharest, Romania, Madison, Wisconsin, Dijon in France, Brussels, New York City, Helsinki, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and a few in a virtual setting. And we continue with this session in beautiful Lecce. So I thank ENCAT and AAAE in taking the lead to assure that we have this platform to share and learn from and with our colleagues from across the globe. So from our gathering in Edinburgh just 7 years ago, unable to envision much of what we face today, I spoke these words, quoting myself. Our collective worlds, our collective realities become closer and more interconnected every day. While we focus day to day on what is needed directly before us, we also know that international forces impact what we do, and what we do impacts others on an international stage. We cannot live in our own bubbles, removed from happenings in the next city or the next country or on the other side of the world, end quote. And I believe that these words seem even more fitting and appropriate today. One very timely topic is our focus for the next 60 to 90 minutes. We'll see how this goes. We might forego everything after global conversations and just keep this going. That is the value of being the last session. Focus may be a key word in this, and I'm going to guess that many of you might be able to relate what I'm about to share. So a little story. On a break from preparing for this gathering, I came across my little used Oculus headset. And for those who are not aware, Oculus is a virtual reality company with VR platforms and equipment that was acquired by Facebook, Meta, about a decade ago. And in full disclosure, my nephew used to work for Facebook, working on the Oculus platform, so he bought me one a few years ago. Well, at the time when I got it, first thing I did, I quickly tried it on, put on the headset, promptly got motion sickness, and didn't open the box again for some time. I said to myself that I preferred actual reality rather than virtual reality. Well, over time, I got over my fear and motion sickness of VR, so most recently, I put the headset on again to get away from the actual reality for a short time instead of preparing and packing, which I should have done for the ENCAT Congress. Before I knew it, I was transported to live concerts, pop acts like The Weeknd and Taylor Swift, great acoustics, hundreds of thousands of people around me, and I was bopping my head along with music, which was not a pretty sight, with great views of the stage And after a while, I started to get the urge for some quiet time, and I soon found myself entering the magic and the quietude of my favorite museums, the Met and Museum of Modern Art in New York City, the British Museum, Musée d'Orsay in Paris, the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, Frida Kahlo Museum in Mexico City, and the Uffizi in Florence. I felt like I walked for hours through galleries with no lines, no queues of tourists, seeing some of the world's most finest artwork, but I wasn't finished yet. I was inspired to visit some of my favorite cultural cities, being introduced to the architecture and famed sites of Sydney and Bangkok, Istanbul and Athens. I bypassed Rome because I knew I'd be making a stop on the way in actual reality. Then I took a break from my break and realized that in a relatively short amount of time, I traveled the world, I had shared cultural experiences, educated my mind, enriched my soul, all without spending my hard-earned money or having to pack for travels. And then it hit me, I was supposed to be packing for ENCAT, but first, after my exhausting worldwide travels and concert going and museum hopping, I took a nap. So much for leisurely preparing for ENCAT. So I'm assuming that some have experienced something similar. In today's interconnected world, digital platforms are revolutionizing the way we experience, share, and collaborate in the arts, effectively bridging cultural gaps and fostering global artistic collaborations. And these platforms serve as powerful conduits, allowing visual and performing arts from diverse regions to be accessed by audiences from across the globe, bringing cultural richness and diversity directly to our doorsteps. No longer bound by geography, artists and audiences can engage with a wider array of artistic expressions, expanding our cultural horizons. AR and VR offer a new dimension to art consumption, allowing audiences to engage with content in ways previously unimaginable, whether it's attending a virtual concert in a different time zone or exploring a digital museum featuring artwork from across the world. These platforms also serve as a catalyst for cross-border collaboration among artists, despite differences in geography, culture, or time zones, co-creating projects that reflect a blend of global perspectives. Moreover, the digitalization of cultural exchange has profound implications for sustainability. Virtual exhibitions and online artistic exchanges reduce the environmental footprint associated with travel and physical installations, making it a more eco-friendly way of cultural collaboration. So by bridging cultural divides, promoting sustainable practices, and enabling global collaboration, digital platforms are transforming how we create, experience, and sustain the arts in a globally connected world. Which brings us to our esteemed panel, who will speak about their perspectives on this topic, before we will then open it up to a conversation with all of you. I encourage you all to view our panelists' bios in the conference app. I will not go through the many, many inspiring titles and backgrounds of each one of them, but very briefly, they are Gaia Denise, who is joining us via video, a recorded video, who is the International Cultural Relations and Public Diplomacy Coordinator with the European External Action Service in Belgium. We have Wu Jianxiang, President of the Taiwan Association of Cultural Policy Studies, TAPS, and Professor at the National Tsinghua University of Education in Taiwan. We have Dan Green, the President of the Association of Arts Administration Educators, former principal ballet dancer of, oh wait, no, that's not right, I'm sorry. Director of Master's Program in Entertainment Industry Management at Carnegie Mellon University in the United States. And Liliana Turio, ENCAT Ambassador, Director of the Master's in Business Administration of the Creative and Cultural Industries, University ASE, or Bucharest University of Economic Studies in Romania, and PhD professor at National Fine Art University in Bucharest. Did I get everybody? So with that, I believe we will begin with Gaia, and I believe that she will address these questions. Initiatives or policies that can help bridge the digital divide and help ensure inclusive participation in digital cultural exchanges in Europe. Examples of successful cross-cultural artistic projects enabled by these digital platforms. And how do digital platforms influence the way cultural heritage and traditional art forms are preserved and shared globally? So, your attention please to Gaia.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. It is a pleasure for me to participate in this global conversation in which I'm going to address the digital challenges for the EU strategies for international cultural relations. So this is why I'm going to frame my intervention around the three pillars that support this strategy. The strategy has been forged since 2016 with a joint communication from the HRVP and the Commission, then confirmed in 2019 by Council conclusion, and by more specific Council conclusion on the protection of cultural heritage in conflict and crisis. So the first pillar of the strategy says that the EU supports culture as an engine for social and economic development. The second pillar, that the EU promotes culture and intercultural dialogue for peaceful intercommunity relations. The third pillar, that the EU reinforces cooperation on cultural heritage. So now, we're going to see how all this applies very much in the EU digital strategy. The first topic I'm going to address is how bridging the digital divide for inclusive digital cultural exchanges needs active policies, and which are the EU initiatives and policies in this field. As we all know, the digital channels and new technologies have the power to bridge the social divide or increase it. So they are a challenge and an opportunity. The digital age represents then a major challenge and an opportunity for the cultural and creative sectors in particular. And I'm referring, of course, to internet, connectivity, artificial intelligence. The EU then has decided to promote and invest internally and worldwide, so also in the external dimension of its action, in a digitalization that enhances social inclusion and brings society closer to each other. We defend an open, free, sustainable, and secure digital future that connects all cultures, enhances creativity, and leaves no one behind. This is, of course, first of all, related to the internet. The internet is a key channel for cultural exchange. The President of the European Commission, von der Leyen, said that the future of the internet is also the future of democracy of humankind. And this makes me remember of a very interesting interview that David Bowie released in the 1980s, in which he was already, in a very visionary way, telling us that we were facing a dramatic change in society due to the rising internet connections. And he was already seeing that the global vision of an open internet nature is challenged by competing idea of close technical, economic, and social approaches to governance of such kind of innovations. And this is what is happening now. Governments are increasingly misusing internet and digital tools to violate human rights and fundamental freedoms. And this is the reason why the EU decided to fund a global initiative on the future of internet, especially to defend the open, inclusive, and free nature of this instrument. In this globalized world, we can also say that digital connectivity is definitely a geopolitical tool. International cultural exchange, of course, could be boosted by digitalization, but only if all society are equally connected. Connectivity starts by infrastructure, which means access to high-speed cables, 5G. This is why, against the approach of some geopolitical actors, the EU firmly believes that inclusive connectivity is a key factor for global prosperity and peace. So our aim is to invest in digital connectivity that provides access to data, also to the most remote areas of the world, to enhance education, training, research, and cultural exchange in an enabling perspective. And the EU Global Gateway, which is in two words now the main investment strategy of the EU in the world, has created many flagship projects that are developing high-speed cables around the world, and they illustrate very well this project, the goal that I was talking about. For instance, the Bella cable is the first connection of its kind between two continents. The 35,000 kilometers of submarine fiber optic cable connect the EU from Portugal and Latin America and the Caribbean through Brazil. This is the terrestrial backbone, the grand success to many LAC countries, and it has connected so far 65 million people. Similar and linked to the Bella is the Euro-Africa Gateway cable that will provide a resilient submarine cable system along Africa's Atlantic Ocean coast, stretching from Europe to Cape Town, which is 70,000 kilometers, and focusing on the unserved countries in the region. Finally, the artificial intelligence, it's not just to be considered as a new tool. This is the algorithms that it will shape politics, culture, and society. This is why it requires a human-centric global governance that respects human rights. AI can create bias and discrimination, starting by the use of languages. And in Europe, we are very aware of that because we are united in diversity of languages and culture. And it's up to us to make sure it contributes to foster cultural enrichment. So this is why, with the recent adoption of the UA Act, we are pioneering responsible and human-centric AI development. Concrete example, it's the commitment to promote multilingualism in the digital world with the support of this emerging technology. The successful cross-cultural communication and understanding, and this is my second topic, is of course enabled by EU digital platforms. Creative Europe is the most interesting platform in this sense. As you know, it is the European Commission's flagship program supporting the culture and audiovisual sector. Creative Europe aims to foster artistic creation and innovation. The program is divided in three strands: culture, media, addressing the audiovisual sectors, and cross-sectoral. The culture strand, which is the one that interests us now, encourages cooperation and exchanging among cultural organizations and artists within Europe and beyond. So this is, again, it has already an external dimension and simulate the digital and environmental transition of the European culture and creative sector. The Creative Europe program has made the digital sphere one of its priorities of action. Among all the supported projects we could highlight, and I'm going to be very quick here because there is a lot, we have 37 pan-European networks of cultural operators that are being enabled to digital transition. We have over 500 cooperation projects working specifically on this topic, of which we can highlight 45 working on digital for new business model. Digital for audience engagement, digitization, ethics, or capacity building and research on digital matter. Strategical addresses all the challenges at the European level and beyond. A very interesting toolbox is Creatives Unite, which is a digital one-stop shop for cultural and creative professionals that gather in one place, virtual place of course, all initiatives, information and tools related to cultural and creative sectors in the EU and beyond. The aim is to bridge the gap between the artists and the overall ecosystem by putting together information circulating on the web regarding creative opportunities, mobility, and giving voice to creators around Europe. This idea of portals that would make accessible for all the creative sector actors, institutions, and stakeholders what is available and what is an opportunity, it's really where we are heading towards to. So this is why Creatives United is really a flagship for us. Now, some relevant examples of more specific projects are the EU Digital Deal, for instance, which is a project that aims to explore how the digital shift and the sudden acceleration it brings, as well as cutting-edge technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain and algorithmic processes have a direct impact on our European values and the integrity of our democratic system. It stresses the importance of involving civil society, artists, and cultural institutions in technological innovation, and of developing an action plan for technological development that respects gender equality, privacy, and promotes diversity. Another very interesting external dimension project is the Africa-Europe Deconfining Project, which is a 4-year cooperation project bringing together cultural practitioners, artists, policymakers, and audiences from 2 continents, Europe and Africa. And you know how strategic Africa is for us now. The project aims to explore and develop new ways of intercontinental artistic and cultural policy cooperation and provide better access and information for intercontinental mobility and co-creation. The project provides a digital space in which cultural operators from Africa and Europe can engage, discuss, and co-create. This means also, of course, generating a very successful public diplomacy action in creating networks of trust and friendship with our partners, in this case, African partners. Last but not least, I can quote the International Music Plus Media Center, which was founded under the aegis of UNESCO in 1961 already. The IMZ drives the digital transformation of the niche cross-sectoral market in the nexus of performing arts and audiovisual media by fostering multidisciplinary collaboration and innovation across the cultural and creative sectors and industries. This network facilitates the use of cutting-edge digital technologies such as virtual reality and live streaming. By encouraging digital production, distribution strategy, and content digitalization, the IMZ enhances global access to diverse cultural expression, preserves cultural heritage, and promotes inclusivity by bringing traditional forms with digital innovation, contributing thereby to a dynamic and accessible digital culture and creative ecosystem, and enhancing Europe's global influence in the digital era. Finally, I would like to touch another topic, how the digital platforms influence the way cultural heritage and traditional art forms are preserved and shared globally. We have to remember that it is estimated that just 10% of our cultural heritage is currently digitized, and even less is available online. To tackle this challenge, the European Commission is now strengthening the Europeana platform to support and steer cultural heritage institutions in making high-quality cultural heritage material accessible in the digital age. Moreover, the European Collaborative Cultural Heritage Cloud is being created at the EU level. It will be a genuine collaboration platform which brings together all professions of and technology for museum and cultural heritage institutions. This will be linked to a common European data space for cultural heritage. This tool could also be very useful in an international dimension for the future of museum cooperation with global partners all around the world, as addressed in a Team Europe initiative that has been recently launched by the Directorate General for International Partnership. And it's now starting to develop, and it is about cooperating with African museums. Then there is the Heritage Hub, which is a pilot project funded by the European Union that contributes to steer the response to the digital challenges from a cultural heritage perspective. The hub builds on the triple transformation Europe and the world are going through: green, digital, and social. And digital transformation refers to the process and the result of using technology to transform how an organization operates and derive value. It is not just about technology, it is about mindsets and personal capabilities. It enables cultural heritage institutions to contribute to the transformation of a sector powered by digital and a Europe powered by culture. Last but not least, culture and cultural heritage are victims of war. And digitalization and internet can then be a strong asset to protect culture. For example, digitalizing Ukraine's heritage and helping Ukrainian artists thrive in spite of war, like in the campaign that we launched called Arts versus War on our social media, that was a great success, in which we were just giving visibility to the Ukrainian artists during the war. The EU protects and preserves this way European culture and the people that create it. Last but not least, the EU services have seized the new opportunities that the digital realm offers in terms of communication, engagement with stakeholders, and dissemination of projects. As I was telling you, we're going more and more towards creating portals, virtual spaces, and also interactive guides and repository of information. For instance, tokens of these are the Culture EU Funding Guide, which is an interactive tool helping players in the cultural and creative sector to identify the most suitable sources of EU support for their projects. We are also creating digital brochures, and one is being created about what we are doing for Ukraine in the cultural sector, about the supported projects and their promotion through social media. So thank you very much. I'm very sorry I will not be in an interaction with the audience, but I hope this gave you an highlight of what the European Union does. And of course, I will stay at your disposal for any inquiry. I'm very happy if the organizer of the conference share my contacts with all of you.
Thank you to Gaia. Now we will hear from Professor Wu.
I'm introduce some cases from Thailand to make this conference more global. My report will be digital platform and also how digitalization helped us to dig our archives. And I will just read the text I wrote. My report on digital platforms in bridging cultural gaps examines how comprehensive digitalization not only diversified artistic expression, but also reshaped interplay with the past and the present. Thai artists in particular have navigated the complexities of a nation's history while advocating for freedom of expression amidst persistent censorship, especially under the constraints of the Lecce Majesty law, so offense of the royal house. Artworks I present exemplify their efforts to bring these concerns to the forefront on international platforms. My first case of artworks is by Kavita. This is a Thai artist inspired by Brazilian author of the book The Pedagogy of Oppressed, which argues that societal injustice has led to the dehumanization and the objectification of individuals. Kavita created two AI avatars, Kavita 1 and Kavita 2, presenting the oppressor and the liberator. This act of her symbolized both the artist and the Kavita 2's effort to reclaim humanization. And most Thai people will be feeling very familiar to her position of kneeling. Now we see another kneeling position in this painting. This painting was an official commission. It records about the reception of the ambassadors of the King of Siam, Rama IV by Napoleon III, Empress. And it was commissioned in 1861. And we can see the kneeling officers before the Napoleon III. And we can see here is a crumb and how the artist work for an artwork. The artist is Arin Ronjiang, and the right is the portrait of the Rama IV, the king of Siam. And the kneeling position and the kneeling before the Thai royal family is still practiced today. A ritual later reinforces social hierarchy and undermines the principle of equality. It also highlights the political exploitation of the Lecce Majesty law. And the artists work with many digitalized archives and also with historical pictures. Like one picture he also used for his art piece is the meeting of their king with Adolf Hitler in 1934. And here is his second piece I am introducing. It is represented at the Documenta 14. And the artist replicated the relief from the Democracy Monument built in 1932, which paradoxically symbolizes both Thailand's historical democratic revolution and the current shortcomings of his democracy. This is his replica from this part. He also demonstrated video work. The monument replica was displayed alongside a video featuring two dancers in front of Hitler's bunker, now a parking lot, with a voiced reading from Chatin's memoir. Chatin, who was appointed the Thai ambassador to Berlin in 1938 and later imprisoned by the Russian army, chronicles his encounter with Hitler, a history that has been erased from Thailand's official records. And now I introduce another artist with his art exhibition. The artist is Mi Jiang Ying. He held an art exhibition titled The Royalist Marketplace. The connection between the exhibit and the artist's advocacy for royal reform was only ambiguously hinted at. The exhibition title was inspired by Royalist Marketplace, a Facebook group created in April 2020 as a space to open discussion about the Thai monarchy. Within months, the group amassed 1 million members before being blocked by Thai government. And in another exhibition he held in Taipei, has a similar set. We can see here the artwork doesn't really reveal a political appeal, but the title of the exhibition is The King and I, and showcased with this title of a film from a Hollywood film produced in 1951. And it tells the story of an English teacher who came from England to Thailand to enlighten the royal family with her modern knowledge. This film was initially perceived as an insult to Thai royal house and was subsequently banned. And we can see here the still image of the kneeling concubines in Western costumes before the king and I. The ritual of paying respect to the king appears improper in these costumes. I don't know how familiar you are to this film. So maybe younger generation not really know this film. In recent years, The King and I has become synonymous with lèse majesty law in global discourses, shedding light on the subtle references made by Mi Jiang Ying in his exhibition. And we can see the two different reports about the censorship in Thailand, and both use the title The King and I. So my conclusion is staying uploaded and to be remembered and censorship resistance. These artworks illustrate how Thai artists intertwined their country's complex path to democracy, blending historical documents, images, and newly created work into a dynamic online archive awaiting discovery by netizens worldwide. These pieces also reflect the deep concern of internationally acclaimed Thai artists for freedom of expression, employing subtle visual language to navigate and circumvent censorship. At the same time, exploring these dynamic online archives allow people from outside Thailand, like myself and others concerned with censorship in art, who did not personally witness this event, to engage with and absorb these memories, fostering deeper connection to them. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Wu. And I should have also introduced with the question that she has framed for us, which I think now you know, but about expressing the complexity of a nation's history and using Thai artists as examples, and specifically dealing with issues of censorship and freedom of expression and demonstrating the tension between past and present. So thank you very much for a very interesting presentation using those examples. And now we will turn to Dr. Dan, who will respond to the questions: in what ways have digital platforms enabled new forms of artistic expressions that transcend cultural boundaries? And how is cultural creep, and he will explain hopefully what that is how is that related to digital platforms? Dan.
Thank you. I want to talk about cultural creep, but I have a subtitle for this, which is there was a time in all of our lives when we did not take our cell phones into the bathroom with us. And I think that aspect of the way that we have attached ourselves to screens, stay with me. I'm going to relate this to cultural creep as we think about this. For those of you who may not be aware, cultural creep is related to the small changes that happen in a society. The key word here is being subtle. It happens with globalization, the constant exposure to different themes that happen. There's a culprit culture that happens. If you're at a certain company or a nonprofit, an NGO, there's a culture there, as well as the societal changes that happen. As you can tell, I was very clever and I made the word environment extra large because my point today will be related to environment, but it's a significant change and I'm going to propose to you that's happening a lot right now as we think about cultural creep. So I want to share with you a photo from Claremont, California. I live in Los Angeles. Claremont is about 45 minutes to the east because I have so many academics in front of me. This is the Claremont Consortium with Harvey Mudd, Sonoma College, etc. This is just a beautiful day in Southern California. I'm going to show you a different shot of Mount San Antonio. You might know it as Mount Baldy. It's over 3,000 meters and it's part of the San Gabriel mountain range near Los Angeles. It's called that because all the trees are removed and from afar in Los Angeles it looks like the top of the mountain is bald. The interesting thing is that these were actually taken from the same location. And the reason that you can't see a 3,000 meter mountain on some days has to do with the fact of what's happening climate-wise there. It's over 3,000 meters. That's another shot of it. It's very hard to miss in Los Angeles, but there's right now 4 simultaneous fires occurring. And it was actually mentioned on the first day as well. There's the bridge fire that's affecting LA and San Bernardino counties, the airport fire in Orange and Riverside, the line fire, which is right by a national forest, and then the Vista fire, which is affecting Mount Baldy that you're seeing here. So over 100,000 acres have already been ruined, lots of mandatory evacuations, 33 homes ruined, and 3 firefighters seriously injured. We all know what this is about. It's got to do with the dry conditions, and living in Southern California, this is a major issue. In 2024 alone, over 6,000 facilities have been affected by this, and it's almost 100,000 acres. So it's the highest average in the last 5 years, and you look at the destruction, it's pretty significant with Baldy in the background. But here's our disappearing mountain that you'll see because of all the haze in the you can maybe see the outline slightly, and there it is again as it goes through here. Now, this is pretty timely because this has been happening while I'm coming out here to Europe. This is the reports I'm getting back from Los Angeles. Just 2 days ago, California Governor Gavin Newsom has signed something called the Great Implementation, which is trying to get to net zero carbon pollution by 2045. He's shooting for an 85% reduction in greenhouse gases and a whopping 94% cut in oil consumptions. And he says he will try to create 4 million jobs. He probably won't be there when all this gets done, of course, in 2045, but the fires are going to continue on. And even though I'm not the biggest Gavin Newsom fan, I really support what he's been doing. He's been brave on this subject, even though a lot of other people in the States are teasing him because it does cost a lot of money. So now I want to talk about soaps. So these are soaps in a jar. I think this is very pretty. This is a piece of artwork called the Sewer Soapery from 2015. And I hope you think that these are very appetizing pieces of soap that you might put out in a nice fancy restaurant or something. Doug is smiling because he probably knows where I'm going with this. Actually, this artist was motivated to create these soaps because of what's happened in Manila. So when it would be heavy rains, it would flood, it would back up. And what was happening is people were throwing sanitary products and garbage that shouldn't be in the sewers. But mostly what they were throwing in the sewers was cooking oil. And that cooking oil would get together and create something that folks in Manila would call fatbergs. And some people, when she made this, that's actually a picture of her creating these soaps. Some people would say that it smelled like cookies. That's a nice thing for your soaps. I guess you have cookie hands. But other people would say it smelled like cooked chicken. So I don't think you want your hands to taste like that. She actually said that she probably wouldn't hold the soap in her own hand without some sort of gloves. But she did a bunch of art installations based on this, saying, we're taking this product that no one wants, and she would distill it down and make it into something that would be, in fact, soap. So how do I find out about something like this? Well, one of the things, and I'm going to refer to something that Gaia said later on with this, is that we're looking for finding out about what's happening in other sides of the world through digital platforms. This is the Arts and Climate Initiative, which looks at the problems that have to be addressed in a collaborative manner. And these are just some of them. If you want to take a picture of that, there's tons of them out there, but these are some that you might be interested in: connecting activists, the Climate Action Network, the Reality Project, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we even have something from Al Gore up there from many a time ago. I want to talk about one other artist, and that is Cheryl Mader, who made the U.S. shortlist as the Alpha Female Award winner with Sunny World Photography. A lot of her stuff has to do with water or environment. She has stuff in Paris. She has stuff at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Rome, the Miami New Media, and then she did her thesis related to water, climate change, and communities, and you can see it went around the world. So very interesting artist, and I just want to note that some of her work was auctioned at Sotheby's. So I'm not saying that because your work is auctioned, it makes you a great artist, but this is an artist, I think, with a lot of respect. There's another piece that I like of hers called Dreamscape from 2015. She does a lot of photography and film installations. So this particular piece of art can actually be found at the Delta Lounge at Los Angeles International Airport. And I am a frequent flyer on Delta. I'm a big Delta fan. So when you go travel a lot, they'll give you and put you into a separate lounge. So I've created a new piece of art that I'm showing all of you today, and it's called, "Excuse Me, I'm leaving the bathroom and some guy is videotaping me," because that's what I did. So I just did a little study. I stood there for 30 minutes, and I was videotaping how people reacted to this artist whose stuff has been auctioned off, and she's in Paris and she's in Rome. I thought the art was really gorgeous. It's a rotating piece and there's information about the artist, but not one person in my little mini 30-minute case study stopped to look at the art that was happening. What they did look at was their phones. And you have that culture creep that I'm talking about, that we have evolved from looking up and around, and I'm seeing some of you on your phones right now, rather than what's happening in the environment itself. So that's an interesting aspect that's happening here. Why don't we care about the art? And I'm being a little bit provocative here. Of course we care about the art, but no one stopped because the phones were more interesting. The art was just a few steps away, but there's a lack of curation, which I think is important. It wasn't presented in a gallery space. It wasn't recommended on TikTok or X. The expectations are more inclined for those who are recommending or getting a thumbs up. Our distractions, there's too much of them, and we're not going to appreciate art in an unusual setting, even though a lot of folks in front of me work to put art in unusual settings, which I think is wonderful. But there's a lack of familiarity and there's a discomfort. I don't want to stop in front of the men and women's room to go ahead and look at this. So I'm going to let this video play out, but listen as I'm videotaping. One of the guys apologizes to me for getting in the way of my case study, which I think is charming on his part.
Sir.
He just said sorry. And it's just another aspect that people will ignore, even though she's doing stuff all about the environment, which brings me to the importance of cultivation, curation, and what folks like you can do to help that and continue to move things forward. This idea of the power of digital platforms and sharing stuff and making opinions to stuff before you present to someone else, I think is super important. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Dan. And next we will hear from Liliana, who will address ways that digital platforms have changed the creative industries market in Europe and how digital platforms contribute specifically to the sustainability in fashion. Liliana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you for being here, dear colleagues, dear guests. First of all, I am very pleased to see that a conference dealing with digital platforms, but also with creative industries and fashion, in my case, is generating so much interest. But as Alan said, maybe there are more reasons because this is the last panel and you are more relaxed. Or where you are waiting for the dessert, because what's the best can be the last part. Thank you very much, Janalia, for organizing this amazing exchange. It was a pleasure to participate not only in many congresses, ENCATC Congresses, but also to participate in the preparations of these panels, interacting with so many specialists, distinguished speakers and professors. And I would like to thank also to Francesca for hosting this ENCATC Congress here in this amazing university. Thank you so much. For me, it was a surprise, a beautiful surprise. I will come back. It is my first time here, and I was very pleased to be able to exchange with so many people. I am under the impression of the panels of this day. And then I decided to leave a little bit the presentation I prepared for today because it was such a wonderful exchange. We organized today member talks and it was amazing. The conclusions were so relevant. And I want to share with you something. I had this feeling yesterday and today, a family feeling. Why? Because we are all here and we interact. And despite the digital platforms that could have facilitated the organization of this ENCATC Congress online, we are together. So my advice or my feeling before starting my short presentation, because we have 10 minutes and 2 slides, Alan was very clear. So I should say, don't forget how to log in the real life. Don't forget to leave the phones, not only when we are in bathroom, as Dan mentioned. We can see a group of friends bringing laptops to the picnic in our days. So yes, the digital platforms, the artificial intelligence, as I remember Janalia, the conclusion of our previous Congress, yes, in Helsinki with this amazing topic, the artificial intelligence, they are here to stay. They are not leaving, but we'll have to deal with them, but we'll have to stay connected with the real life. Because if we are not able to manage to deal with them, it will be a problem. They will take control. Allow me to offer some preliminary remarks on these important fields, the creative industries. When we assert the role of creative industries, we inevitably celebrate the human creativity, which lies at the foundation of creative economy. We know that. As we know, creative industries have a significant economic weight and an increasingly important social role. They employ more than 1% of the world's active population and more than 3% of the European Union's workforce. These digital platforms, they have the power to transform us. It is the title of our panel or our exchange. Yes, they have this power. And because Alan asked me to share with you my experience, not as a diplomat, general coordinator for many large-scale European projects. I was happy to be the general coordinator for a wonderful project, the 37th edition of the Art Festival Europalia in 2019. And I coordinated 250 projects, cultural projects, in 4 months in 5 countries with 20 people, with a team of 20 people. It was amazing. That was before the pandemic. And I can tell you that when the pandemic started, I asked my team, my colleagues, what shall we do now? We cannot visit the museum. A few months before this moment, we saw the Art Axis Mundi of Brussels, Beaux-Arts Museum, full of people. A line with more than 1,000 people waiting to enter and to see the exhibition dedicated to Constantin Brancusi. And I said to my colleagues, okay, after this amazing experience, what shall we do? So we become very creative. And we discovered these digital platforms. And after that moment, I was the director of the Romanian Cultural Institute in Brussels. And normally our mission was to promote the Romanian artists, the European values, to make possible exchanges. But how? The only image I remember about Brussels was an empty space. So we discovered these platforms and we made possible, we could continue, we were able to continue the exchanges. Why? Because I can tell you something, a very successful, large-scale international project is, of course, a project with many visitors, is, of course, a project which is not a list of events, which is a real experience for the public. And I can tell you that art and music, and you know that, they are able to reach the deepest feelings of a human, of a person. And music, for example, it doesn't need any translation to, at the end, to have, let's say, the respect and the admiration of the public. So how to continue? And this was the solution, the digital platform. But of course, being an artist, and sorry, I didn't present it myself, I will briefly. So I graduated fashion design, then I start my PhD, and then I organized more than 100 solo exhibitions with my projects in more than 20 countries. Then I became a diplomat, and I realized that it's very difficult to convince the artists to come and join us on these platforms. Why? Because they said, Liliana, you are an artist. You cannot compare the experience in front of an artwork with the experience in front of the pixelate screen. So they are not comparable. But I said, yes, but we cannot isolate ourselves. So in this way, these digital platforms transformed us a lot. Not even speaking about bringing visual and performance art to our doorsteps. This was another transformation. Why? When I graduated the university, I spent years, and I mean years, every single period, like holidays, like weekends, I spent it to see modern art museums in Europe and the United States. Why? Because during the communist period in Romania that I experienced for 20 years, I was not able to go outside the country to visit one single museum. So I was in the position to graduate the university and to be able to visit the first museum outside the country at the age of 21. It was the Smithsonian Museum. And I remember that moment. I spent weeks, years after, to see the works of Constantin Brancusi in Smithsonian Museum, then in Philadelphia, then in Centre Pompidou from Paris. And I was so happy when, for example, not all the time the curators, the organizers, they can have artworks for an exhibition. Why? Because there are many things, some works, artworks, must remain few years in deposits and then exhibit. So we were not able to show all the works, but some smart people, they helped us a lot. And they said, we can use the virtual reality. We can bring some works here in the museum in the heart of Europe without having them. Then we tried hardly to reach the heart and the mind of different audience. And we used again the creative industries. How? We created some special programs. I already spoke with my colleagues before about that, as satellites around the main exhibition. We invited dancers, we invited actors, we invited fashion designers to be inspired by this exhibition and to show, in fact, to reach different audiences. And it was great. At the end of the exhibition, not me as a general coordinator, but the organizers, the board of Europalia and Beaux-Arts, they said it was the most visited exhibition in the history of Beaux-Arts. Imagine that. For us, as Romanian, as Europeans, for all the people from all the continents who visited this exhibition. And I was not convinced by these instruments, let's say, tools. Why? Because I'm an artist, and I know that the emotion is very important in this process. But then I realized something when I visited a studio. And this will be the last example, because I think I finished my time. Almost. So, I visited once the studio of a wonderful artist, women, Joana Vasconcelos. She is not an artist, she is an institution. Why I'm saying that? Because I tried 2 years to have a meeting with Joana Vasconcelos. She was, I think, the only women artist invited in France to exhibit au Palais de Versailles, in the Versailles Palace. Then I saw the exhibition, I participated in Bilbao, in Guggenheim Bilbao, and I saw her exhibition, I said, oh my God, she is an ambassador for the creative industries field. So after 2 years, she accepted to have a meeting, and I visited her studio in Portugal. And of course, she presented me many works. I remember her studio was, considering the space, very close to our national museum in Bucharest. So you can have a tour in her studio by car. And I remember that she was trying to tell me, I'm all the time interested to use the tradition, the traditional techniques we have here in Portugal, but to reach the modern audience and to use the technology also to have a crossroads between the tradition, but also to use the new technologies. And it was the first time when I was thinking 1 week on that. So it was a very small space with 2 very talented craftsmen using the technique, that wonderful ceramic, to make elements for a new work that Joanna prepared at that time for Paris. A huge red heart, about 3 tones, for a small square in Paris. Only 2 craftsmen, artisans. And then a huge space with engineers, about 10 architects, IT specialists, a very, very huge space. And I asked Joanna, what are they doing here? And she explained to me, look, it will be a wonderful red heart made from Portuguese ceramic. We want to promote our values, our traditions. But the most important part of my work for Paris is the fact that we will try to put inside this red heart a technology in order to interact with all the people. How? You can open your phone, your device, and you can program the heart to sing for you, and you can choose the music. So this sculpture, amazing sculpture, imagine, you can see this work now in Paris, is able to interact, and in the same time, during the interaction, you can appreciate the Portuguese tradition, the Portuguese materials, and of course, the talent of this amazing ambassador, Joana Vasconcelos. So there are many examples, and I would like to share, maybe Alan will make a second tour or not, or maybe we will have a Q&A session. Yes, digital platforms are reshaping the art scene. We have more access. We can follow a Russian ballet or a concert in Philharmonie, Paris. We can visit some museums, of course. The heritage is more accessible and more inclusive, and the people are in the center of this strategy, of course. But let me say, I was so happy coming from a communist country to have all these tools, but I was all the time interested to remain, as I said, to stay logged in to the real life. They are good. We can interact, we can be more inclusive, but let's remain logged in the real life. I don't think Alan is happy with this conclusion, but we can share, we can discuss. Thank you very much.
I think listening to all of these presentations, including Gaia's video, I just jotted down one note that I hope kind of encapsulated all of it. It seems to be about reaching new and modern audiences, and honoring tradition, history, and heritage, but in a contemporary, relevant way, given the context of today's issues. And there's a lot of tension built into that. And instead of me asking them to respond or asking questions, which I do have only about 75 or 80 of them, I'd rather open it up to all of you in our remaining time to either make any comments or any questions that you may have. Please.
Thank you so much for you all. The conference was just great. Just a notice regarding Joana Vasconcelos. I'm from Portugal, and I've been following Joana work since the 90s. And for those who don't know, this second or third, I don't know, big heart is made of tiles, which are the Portuguese influenced by Arabs that we have in panels. But those hearts, really, one of them is really very well known around the world because there was a fado song by Amália Rodrigues regarding the heart, and it was made on filigrane, not in silver, as normally filigrane is made of, but trying to connect. So that's the other point of view, and thank you so much for your communication paper. Thank you.
There is also another example, just 30 seconds. I remember, and it was so interesting because the works are talking about traditions, also about modernity, the new devices, the new making possible the interaction between architects, engineers, IT specialists, artists, designers, yes. But she said to me, because she's a great woman also, and I'm so happy that we are friends, she said to me, Liliana, but I'll have to share you an experience with another space. It is a famous work, a chandelier, yeah, this is the word, made by very small, intimate women things, yeah, you are very surprised to see a chandelier made from obe, small elements, let's say. And it was an amazing success when she presented this in France. But once she was invited, I think, in Japan, and she presented the chandelier and no reactions. And then she realized how important is this exchange between cultures, because they didn't appreciate these chandeliers. Why? Because they don't have this kind of things in their culture. So she said, what a mistake to choose something which is very, very successful in the European space and to bring this in another culture, and they didn't understood what I wanted to transmit. So that's why, again, it is so important to interact, to know each other, to interact using these digital platforms with other cultures, to have access from our own home. So that's why we need to manage, even if we are very quickly transformed, and to keep the limits, of course.
Sometimes we forget the value of that, just being in our own homes and how we can access and build upon what you're talking about. Yeah. Other comments or questions? Yes, Gerald.
In other words, we think we know the USA. I watch TV, but we don't. And the same for, I thought it was going to be on Taiwan, but no, it's on Thailand. Great. I supervise PhDs on Thailand, and the history is extraordinarily complex and difficult. And that just comes on to the second point, which is we all teach lots of students from around the world. And I would say the one failing we all have is we're rubbish at history. We sort of know the contemporary, we think. and we don't know the history that's created it. And you kept mentioning the communist period. Some of us actually worked during that period of time, and it was a different world, and I wouldn't want to romanticize it in any single way, but history is really important, and we are generally not good at it. We're very good at the immediate.
And to that point, using the example of the king and I, talking about how little we know about history, if that is our only lens that we're looking through to view that portion of history, and it is so problematic in so many ways, we're doing a disservice to ourselves and those that we teach. So you're absolutely right on point. Yes.
And I want to give you another example, Alan, because for us it was so good to discover this way to communicate, to know each other, to interact. But I will offer you this example. Why? Because we had the basis, we studied, we have all the elements, but my children, they experienced during the pandemic a lot of these digital platforms, and they visited many museums with me, looking on the internet, on the screen. And I remember their reaction when I said, "You know Louvre?" "Yes, we know Louvre, because we spend hours to make virtual tours." And I cannot tell you how bizarre was for me when I saw their reaction after many hours virtual tour in Louvre in Paris, when we were there together in person. And they said, "Mama, but this is a huge museum." Their feeling was that this museum doesn't exist. It is something virtual. In that moment, I realized that they are experiencing differently. So we'll have to take care with the new generations and to try to keep them logged in with the real life.
Yes, how do we introduce actual reality to those who are more used to virtual or artificial?
Yeah, that's exactly where I was coming in. In the word virtual reality, if you relate it to culture and arts, it's really, there's a tension there, because culture and arts are not about reality, are they? They are virtual, but they're not about reality, they're about something else. So within digitization, there is this tension between being played and playfulness, right? So the medium can play us, and we are being played by the medium. But when does the medium open up for us to play? Just like your example with the heart. It makes us playful, right? It makes us connect. And that's not what the medium does by itself. So perhaps, and that's a question for you, the medium does not really facilitate what we want in it being virtual reality.
It'd be interesting to see what happens with the folks who are 10, 11 right now and where they end up going, because their experience and how they're adapting to art, music, technology is much different than what we went through. And even the people who are in their early 20s here have a different experience than those of us who are older. But you're right. I think Apple as a company had much different expectations. Meta failed with the metaverse, you know. Zuckerberg was so confident with what was going to happen that he literally changed the name of his company, which ricocheted onto Wall Street. And it's fine to keep that name, but that's how much he believed in it. But because, you know, we're still seeing cryptocurrency exchanges and thefts happening there, well, that was supposed to be confident and fix a lot of the virtual exchange of finances. So we're still going in that direction, I would still say it's really important, but I think it's going to be a big cultural shock for us to see young kids who've only grown up experiencing it that way, and that's how they want to, is through that medium.
I actually would like to make it even more complicated and related to the aspect we had earlier with like AI, right? Because we're like, our digital world we are talking about now is digital world 1.0. And what about AI coming into the game being digital world like 2.0? So yeah, how does that fit in the picture? Sorry, I mean, not an answer, another question.
I think we have time for one more question or comment.
We can have endless discussions about what is the future of interactions, whether it's for the upcoming generations and so on, but to also recognize that it's not happening at the same pace around the world. There's a massive, massive, difference of digital parity, and how do we address that? I mean, as a collective community here within the arts and cultural sector, and then also beyond.
Gaia brought that up in her comments, which I thought was spot on, because the politics of geography and the politics of finance, and you break them all down. There's a gigantic politics of accessibility and G5 and wireless, and India is a phenomenal example of that, looking at who has it and who doesn't. Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah, I think, that's something, like you said, we can talk all around it as much as we can, but there's going to be always that issue of parity across geography and status and so many other things. And I'm glad that Dan brought that up, because that caught my eye too when Gaia was talking about it with an initiative about promoting inclusive connectivity. And that really almost is at the heart of it, as you were saying, because we can't even resolve or address many of the things we're talking about until that happens. So great point, and a great point to end with as well, as we just create more questions for next time. I want to thank our panelists. Thank you so much, and thank you to all of you. And I will turn this over to Janalia to conclude.
Okay, so and then who is exhausted? Many. So it's not surprising, because during the last 3 days, altogether 200 people from all over the globe, we have listened to 1 keynote, 2 panel debates, 5 member talks, 2 project showcase with 20 projects from all around the world, 20 education and research sessions, with each of them more than 5 speakers for about 80 panelists, 1 forum for young researchers with 6 finalists, 1 policy debate, 1 award ceremony, 4 artistic cultural programs, 2 evenings in 2 beautiful historical heritage places, 1 global conversation. Soon we are going to visit for study visit, and tomorrow visiting for 2 days the countryside. So you should be proud that you are still alive after all this. So congratulations. Okay, so conclusions, many things, many people to thank. And I have a short time. First of all, I wanted to thank the audience, because you were very, very inspiring. I really enjoyed to talk with many of you during the coffee breaks and many different networking events. I would have loved to meet each of you individually, but I think I was closely to that. So maybe we still have time before the end of today. But you were very inspiring, very committed, and really here almost every day. I also wanted to thank all our members because they have really contributed to shape and co-create the program. It was immense, Liliana said, it's true, the time that all of you have invested since many months in preparing, sharing, asking questions, sharing articles, books. I was impressed, and you are all voluntaries. So this is really, really nice to see, to experience. I don't think there are many networks that can be proud, like I'm proud, to have this, that somebody said the family. It's true, it's a family. It's really something very special. So I really want, on behalf also of the board, to thank for being such a loyal and special members. Of course, I wanted to thank the speakers for their time in each slot of the programs. I wanted to thank our special speakers, Professor Rizzello, for your presence, for being with us the full 3 days, always smiling, very nice, and also taking care of the young of this organization. This 3 days event was also possible thanks to the hard work of many institutional bodies of ENCAT. I don't want to list, because otherwise it's another day, all the people that comprise these bodies, but I wanted to thank all the members of, first of all, the ENCAT board, because they work very hard behind the scenes all the year long. We have started this Congress in January, we have been in Lecce in May, so if it's a success, I believe it is because we've been working 1 year long before meet you all here. I wanted to thank the steering committee, the scientific committee, the members of the jury of the ENCAT Award. All of them have played a very important role in the success of this edition. I wanted to thank Vu, our strategic partner, president of TAPS, but also Dan and Alan, because they are always extremely important in crafting our Congress, taking different roles in different moments of the agenda. Of course, I wanted to thank our local partner, the Department of Economy of Scuola Isufi and Technopolis. They are crucial, you can imagine, in the preparation of this event. They were in the front line since many months. They've been working very hard. And I really wanted to thank and express my gratitude to Davide for all the advice during the different stages of the program, but Francesca deserves an applause. Not only because she's fantastic, efficient, sometimes difficult, but Francesca is... But we love Francesca, and I felt that she has a very, very special relations with the students, that they are all here, and I really want to thank all of you. You are 30. Francesca will continue in this immense gratitude because you were always very nice during these 3 days and you really have done a wonderful work. So thank you so much. But among these 30, my special gratitude goes to the 3 that have done a virtual internship with us, Asia, Andrea, and Antonio. I don't know where they are, but I really wanted to have them here and you applauding them. So Antonio. And I want to say that I was also very proud that I saw during these months Antonio, Asia, and Angelica getting more confident. So really, it's really nice. So I see that the internship also was useful. And they have prepared the study tour entirely. and the visit of this afternoon. I see that it's raining. Okay, they have not planned the rain, but thank you for this. Last but not least, I must express all my deepest gratitude to my staff. Of course, there is no doubt that they've done a fantastic work, and I want to really thank Isabella Verdette for the efficient and professional coordination of the education and the research session and the Young Researchers Forum. I wanted to thank Jean-Manuel, that is here, that is that has been working very hard before and during the Congress to ensure this consistent, beautiful branding, but also all the communication during the past days and before. And of course, our beautiful Prafalin with a beautiful dress during this. So I wanted to thank her for supporting the project showcase, the member talks, all the moments where I had to disappear and UFIC took over my duties. So thank you also for this last minute replacement. So what else? Nerina, our strategist in communication, that is not there, but I think she was with us during the Congress.
Okay, I have a really simple task to finish off, having started at the beginning, and it's just to thank one person, which is Gianna Leah. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode from the ENCAT Congress 2024 series. You can find episodes addressing other insightful sessions of the Congress as part of the series on the ENCAT website. We truly hope that these podcasts provide you with new perspectives and reinforce your commitment towards co-creating sustainable and conscious cultural and creative sectors. Thank you.
You have been listening to the podcast of ENCACT, the European Network on Cultural Management and Policy. To learn more about us, our activities, and how to become a member, visit encact.org.